Shaman is a beast unit that can support both mental and reality DPS. By fanning his marinated smell from the cold he probably never washes, he can cause enemy great distress and lower both their mental and reality defense. At higher Portray, he can also serve as a main DPS with his ultimate hitting like truck. In this video, we're going to first look at Shaman's kit to understand why he is meta support, followed by a detailed breakdown of his Portray as it is quite influential. We will then go through his build and his synergy with the current and future characters, finishing with my opinion on whether you should or should not pull for him on your account. One key part of Shaman's kit is a stacking buff called Nature's Blessing. Whenever he casts an ultimate, he will consume up to 5 Nature's Blessing and convert them to Moxies. If you have 5 Nature's Blessing ready, he will have his ultimate back immediately for the next turn. There are a few ways to get the stacks. Shaman's Insight 1 gives 2 stacks of Nature's Blessing at the beginning of the fight, and his Insight 3 give him 1 stack of Nature's Blessing every other turn. You can also get additional Nature's Blessing through his skill 1 if it's rank 2 or higher. Nature's Blessing is the reason Shaman is considered one of the best bursting DPS in shorter fights, as he can quickly burst down target with up to triple ultimate back to back, which we will talk about later in his Portrays. His first skill is a single target attack that does very good damage at rank 1, but what's more important about the skill is what I have just mentioned. At rank 2 and above, it will give him an additional Nature's Blessing stack. You will always be looking to fuse the skill to rank 2 when possible, as long as you're not going to cause overflow in Moxies. His other skill is an AoE debuff. It applies 15% reduction to both mental and reality defense, along with 10% damage taken increase, which goes up to 30% at rank 3. This skill is especially good for mental teams, as we do not have good mental support like Cornbloom that has easily accessible defense reduction built in. This also synergizes very well with himself. With 2 defense down and damage taken up, he can fully activate the other effect of his Insight 1, which provides 8% damage bonus for each status down enemy has to up to 24%. His ultimate is an AoE skill. The base damage is rather mediocre, as it only deals 250% damage compared to, let's say, Jessica, which does 350% damage. But the ultimate has 2 parts. It deals 500% damage instead of 250 to the main target, and the damage dealt to main target will also benefit from additional 20% crit chance, with any crit chance exceeding 100% converted to crit damage. At P0, it's practically impossible to actually reach that 100% without help of Tooth Fairy, especially considering his awful low crit attack. But the good thing is, Shamane is able to use his ultimate back to back thanks to Nature's Blessing. With that being said, what is it actually like to be using him? Well, that depends on his portrait, as they make a huge difference in how you play him. At P0, he is a perfectly fine debuffing machine with a strong low turn burst thanks to the double ultimate. You will be, for most part, looking to use his debuff skill every other turn to keep the debuff active on the enemy team. You can get his double ultimate around turn 4, though you will also need to use one skill after the ultimate to make sure the ultimate comes back. His P1 let him have 5 Nature's Blessing instead of 2 at the beginning of the combat. At this point, you can now go for triple Shaman ultimate in around 3 turns, depends on how many rank 2 skill 1 you were able to use. And of course, you will need to use additional Shaman skills for Moxies after the second ultimate. His P2 gives him 40% more crit rate on the main target of his ultimate. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. Because again, Shaman has low base crit, and with Tooth Fairy, this 40% effectively all turns into crit damage for him, which is around 15 to 30% increase depends on your build and the target. P3 is pretty useless, but P4 and P5 greatly increase his damage again. They both focus on his ultimate damage, and when reach full P5, his damage is competitive against other DPS, despite having only 1 damage skill. When it comes to Psychubes, the character of Heart is actually weaker than Brave New World or Luxurious Leisure at lower portrait, and even at higher portrait, the character of Heart will still need to be amplified to be competitive, and in my opinion, it's not really worth the investment, unless you have him at minimum P2. For the Resonate, you can either use crit or attack. They have very little difference in terms of damage output, but you will have more consistent result with crit if you're running Tooth Fairy and is at P2 and above. So how does Shaman do in the meta? Well, for 3-man team, Shaman will take the cake for mental teams and beast teams, but will lose out to non-beast reality teams to Cornbloom. At least at lower portrait, that is. And for 4-man team, he's actually just hands down one of the best support to have paired with 6. We won't be going into details on how 6 works here, but Shamane can apply the debuffs while 6 provide buffs. And at high Portray, it's always good to use both Tooth Fairy for additional critical damage on his ultimate. So I've been mostly saying positive things about Shamane. Does that mean he's a must-have? For free to play, I would have to say no. See, Shamane is at a very awkward position. He makes your team much stronger and bring incredibly burst in early turns. In fact, even as we go into future patches, he's still one of the meta support of the game. But the issue is, he's only used in very specific teams, limited to Mental or Beast. While it can raise the ceiling of what your character can do, he simply cannot compete on what is to come next patch, which are 6 and 37. They are both very important units. And of course, if you are paying players with actual pools and resource laying around, absolutely add him to your team. Also, if you're new to the game, you can consider picking him up if you have already got your hands on some main DPS character but need the support, because he can be used in practically every single team as the support with the exception of upcoming Genesis damage team. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about Shamane. I will be looking to make an updated future unit overview in the upcoming days, that way free-to-play players can plan out their pools a little bit forward. This has been Steambound X, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.